Testing, testing.
Sounds good, Andrew.
Hello. In the minute here, I have a question. Who came up with that green logo on the left?
That was the IETF's protocol badge marketing super team.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
And is that OpenPGP specific? Yes? Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
And the group is called Octopop. That's the design firm that IETF consults with for protocol badges.
Oh. I'm asking this because I just came from a meeting where we're discussing interesting stencils to better talk about certificates, signatures, CAs, blah, 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 because everyone hates the current non-standard diploma on the wall thing. And that one's very interesting. So.
Yeah, this is, I don't think either Stephen or I would have come up with this one on its own, but it seems to be okay. And you can actually buy t-shirts with it on it now. And we have stickers. If you're in person at the next IETF that I'm at, I will give you stickers.
I definitely will need that sticker. And it well, there's a hint there of web of trust because of the people and the whatever and anyway, I don't know if I'm supposed to take that from it, but.
All right. Well, we should probably get started. Yes, Michael, there's a person, there's a padlock, there's a pen, there's a G, there's all kinds of things in this logo. There's a P on its side. It's got it all. So welcome, folks. I see we have about 10 people in the room, which is good. This is the OpenPGP interim meeting for the IETF's OpenPGP working group. We are going to discuss drafts that we have currently adopted by the working group today. Just wanted to remind folks that this is an official IETF meeting, which means that the note well applies. So if you haven't seen the note well before, that is a reminder. There's a reminder here. All of the work that's here, that we do here, is covered under the guidelines of the IETF. That includes things like intellectual property, disclosure policies, and anti-harassment policies, and code of conduct, and all of that kind of stuff. So please, if you're not aware of this, I encourage you to check out the stuff in this link. We are also looking for a note taker. The job of the note taker is to just summarize the things that come up in the discussion. There's a link in the chat that Stephen has pointed to see whether people would help take notes. It'd be great to have someone volunteer to do the note taking. Again, you don't need to record what was displayed on the slides, but if there are decisions made or action items proposed or things like that, that would definitely be worth keeping in the notes. This is a remote meeting. Please keep your audio and video off unless you're presenting or if you're speaking in the queue. If you want to get in the queue, there's a little hand icon down at the bottom of your Meet Echo screen. If you hover over it, it should say Join Queue. If you click that, you'll end up in the queue, and wait until we put you at the front of the queue to speak. This is all done collaboratively. If you can keep the chat open, that would also be useful. And just one more reminder that we are here to work on the best internet, not to the best solution for any one particular vendor or user, and we are trying to contribute to the work of the group through reasoned argument. So yeah. The agenda is we want to talk about key replacement. So that's Andrew Gallagher is going to present that. Daniel is going to present the persistent symmetric keys work. And Falco is going to present the NIST and Brain Pool post-quantum curve work. And if we end up, this meeting is scheduled for 90 minutes. If we end up with more time left over at the end, that's also fine. But this is the rough outline. So if anybody has anything they want to bash on the agenda, now is a good time to raise it. If not now, you can always bring stuff in at any other business if we have time at the very end. But if that's, it looks like I'm not seeing anybody else. So
Andrew's in the queue.
So he is. Andrew.
Yeah, sorry. Can we agree on which channel we're in the chat, because there appear to be two, and some people are in one and some people are in the other. So can we pick one?
I don't see two chats. I just see one chat.
There's interim with today's date and IETF interim.
Oh.
Use the one with the date.
Okay. So I'm in the one that is IETF interim, and I don't know how the date is formatted. What am I looking for?
It says interim 2025-10.6-16.
With a space?
Interim space 2025-10-16.
Okay.
Michael has put a for one into the other, so.
That's confusing.
Yes, you're in the, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the heads up.
Okay.
So Andrew, you are next here. So do you want to drive the slides or shall I?
If you have the slides there and you give me control, that's perfect. That's the way we did it before. It usually works.
Okay, so there's the slides.
There are the slides. Yeah. I don't have control.
I think you have to ask for control. Like.
Oh yeah. Oh no, that's no. Sorry.
No, the chair passes control to the person.
Yeah.
Hover on his name and go to the left.
Hover on his name. Pass slides control. All right. Yes, done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible, because not that much has happened. It's mostly been editorial changes, non-substantive stuff since the last time that we spoke. So I will rattle through this. There is an open question that is blocking us, but it's not to do with this draft specifically, but more to do with how we manage interop testing. But I'll get to that in a second. So the basic design, this is the usual recap slide. So we have a signature subpacket that's used in certain signatures, provides a hint for how to find a new key. It is of this format, which there are 4 fields in a record, including a record length field, and there are 1 or more records per subpacket, depending on what the first octet of the subpacket data says. We call that the class octet. And that says whether it is a forward or reverse relationship that it refers to. The idea being that if it is a forward relationship subpacket, it points to the preferred key. If it is a reverse relationship subpacket, it points to all of the non-preferred keys, all of the deprecated keys. So we have a many-to-one relationship. There is always a single preferred key, and then there are several, 1 or more deprecated keys, and they are ordered as they appear in the reverse subpacket in the preferred key. So in the certificate, sorry. When there is a paired forward and reverse subpacket that refer to each other, we call this an identity equivalence binding. This is a slight modification to the earlier terminology because it is the identity that is equivalent rather than the key or the certificate. The keys and the certificates still have their own properties, but they are bound to a single identity. I'll get to that in a second. And this identity equivalence is transitive. So if A is equivalent to B and B is equivalent to C, then A is also equivalent to C. They form a single group. Either all of the members of the group belong to a particular identity or they do not. So the changes since the last time we spoke, which would have been IETF 123, the target record lengths are now a single octet. It was mentioned that 2 octets is probably excessive and very unlikely to be exceeded in the lifetime of the current hashing algorithms. So we decided that it was better just to use the single octet. It covers all potential use cases for the foreseeable future. And we do have an extension mechanism in the class octet. So if we really want to break this in the future, we can define a new length format, but for the foreseeable future, there is no need for that. So 1 octet is enough. The key equivalence to identity equivalence, I've kind of already gone into that. It is the identity that is shared rather than any particular properties of any particular key material. And also, there's lots of new examples in the draft. There is ASVG art now. Thanks, DKG, for your help getting that sorted. And overall, I think the current state of the draft is pretty good. I am quite happy with it currently. Just I drilled down into a lot of the definitions and the terminology in this to try and pin down exactly what identity equivalence is. So there's a lot of new terminology and it's quite granular, but I think it works. I think everything should be self-explanatory. I have distinguished the concept of an identity from a user ID. A user ID is a particular packet that is in a certificate. An identity may or may not correspond to a user ID. So for example, we can potentially have certificates with no user IDs in them whatsoever. But in order to use them, we still need to bind them to an identity, even if that is some kind of non-OpenPGP method. So we could have a configuration file or a local database, or even just anything at all that says that this particular certificate belongs to this particular identity. It does not have to be a user ID, but identity equivalence should apply to that identity whether there is a user ID attached to the certificate or not. The identity claim then is the statement that this identity belongs to this particular certificate. This can be a database or it can be a signature over a user ID. It's a general concept rather than a specific wire format. And also, identity claims are not necessarily true. If I have a self-certification over a user ID in my certificate, that is an identity claim. Whether you believe that identity claim is a secondary question. So the identity link is what we have once we have verified an identity claim, or if we are making an identity claim ourselves rather than a third party making them on our behalf. So there are different levels here and they all depend on each other, but I think they're really critical in trying to build up what we mean by an identity, what identity equivalence means, and how it should function in practice. We also distinguish between derived links and direct links, because a direct link is a statement that this particular certificate belongs to an identity. A derived link is this particular certificate belongs to an identity and these other certificates are identity equivalent to it, even if we do not have specific identity claims on those certificates. Them being identity equivalent bound to the one that does have the direct link gives them an indirect link. And again, this is important when we start to consider what a particular certificate is usable for, under what circumstances, and for which correspondence. So please have a look through the draft and confirm for yourselves that these definitions make sense, that they are clear. Any further suggestions about clarification in these particular concepts would be very welcome. So the outstanding issue, as I see it with the draft at the moment, is how we perform interoperability testing. And because interoperability testing is done primarily through the test suite, which depends on SOP, this question is basically how do we do this in SOP? How does SOP implement this on a user interface level, regardless of what the underlying implementation is doing? So SOP will need to expose an interface, and we have a couple of suggestions for what we could do. And these questions are in the OpenPGP stateless CLI issue tracker and not the replacement key issue tracker. So please go there and look at the open merge requests and the open issues. And there are two particular merge requests that are relevant to key replacement, and I'll go through them now. The first merge request, which is merge request 50, suggests that we have a replaced keys and replaced keys out option to the update key command. And this is an explicit statement that the caller is saying, here are the keys or the certificates that need to be replaced, and here is where you put the newly generated replacements. So it's quite low level, but it's very explicit about what it does. So that has been preferred by, I think it's DKG prefers this particular one. The rival merge requests, they're both authored by DKG, but this rival merge request is preferred by Daniel Howens, and this is the revoke deprecated keys option. So this is an option that just says, if it is possible or desirable for key replacement process to be performed, the SOP interface will do it automatically. Otherwise, it will not. So this is an implicit operation. So this is something that you would call to make sure that everything is refreshed in the background, but you as the user don't necessarily have to say, these are the replacements, this is where you put stuff. Everything is managed within the certificates object that is passed in and out of the SOP interface. And if something should be updated, then it gets updated, otherwise it doesn't. So, like I say, this option is preferred by Daniel Hawkins, I think. And there is a third proposal which is related to the two. It's actually mentioned in the comments of one of them, which is that we probably should also have a SOP split keys command. The idea here being that because it is trivial to concatenate OpenPGP binary files to make another OpenPGP binary file that just contains more certificates, we also need a way to split that back up into its component certificates again, particularly when you're trying to extract the preferred certificate from a file that may contain a preferred certificate and lots of fallback deprecated certificates. And this could be implemented in combination with one of the other two options. So this is basically where we are. This decision is blocking us from writing a test in the interop test suite, which is then, it's blocking us from doing proper interop testing. So the comments on this issue, on these merge requests 50 and on 52, please go into those and have a look. Particularly, I think it's 50 has more comments, but there's a bit of discussion there, which is mainly DKG and Daniel Hawkins, and occasionally me commenting on the various benefits of these. Other opinions are politely requested. So if you have read these and you do have any particular thoughts on them, the floor is open. I don't know if either of the Daniels want to speak in favor of either of the proposals.
Thanks, Andrew. I just want to mention that we need I'm actually fine with either of these. If the other Daniel has a strong preference for the other one and thinks that there's a way to write a reasonable test suite, a reasonable test in the test suite for this, then that would be fine with me. But I just want to make sure that we have a way to test this, because I want to be able to say when we're doing our final review of this draft, which looks very solid to me. Thank you, Andrew, for all the work you put into it. I want to be able to say, look, here's 2 implementations. They do the right thing, whatever the right thing is. So, we just need to make a decision, I guess, going forward. And somebody needs to put something into the test suite that shows that we have some interoperability. That's what's missing.
Are there any other implementers other than DKG and Daniel Howens who have an opinion or would like to suggest any alternative options?
So Daniel notes in the chat that the other block are just having implementations. Do we know what implementations are out there? Sounds like there's nothing from Proton, which would be OpenPGP and OpenPGP.js. Do we know if there's other implementations?
I am not aware of any implementations right now.
Okay, so that's going to make it hard for us to wrap this up if we don't have any implementations that can do it.
A few people have mentioned that they were willing to implement, but I don't think there's any concrete sign of actual code at this point.
Right. So one thing that was useful to spur implementations is to put a test in the test suite and see if it works. And we can't do that without these two. So yeah, that was sort of the framing that I was looking at. And I'm willing to try to knock together an implementation for it with PGPy, just to see if I can do that. But I would, I would want to aim for making sure that it works. So yeah, I don't know, Andrew, if you have any thoughts about how to, what a test would look like given either of these two proposals, how we would put a test in, and what we would do to confirm it, then I'm open to that as well. So.
Sure. I think the simplest test would be that we generate a pair of certificates, one preferred, one deprecated. We get we have a certification signature over the deprecated certificate, and then we pass this to a receiving implementation that can verify the certification signature, get it to perform an encryption operation, say, and check that it is encrypted with the preferred certificate, as opposed to the one that was certified over, which is now deprecated. That would be the simplest test that I can think of. Or we could do it the other way as well. We could check to see whether it was able to verify a signature made by the preferred certificate, the one that has the indirect identity link. So those would be the two tests that I would suggest.
Right. So it might be worth trying to write that down in, I don't know, a merge requests on the interop test suite or an issue tracker on the interop test suite, or in one of these two tickets on the SOP issue tracker, because I think that will, saying, hey, here's the shape that you need to fit in order to demonstrate interoperability, I think would be pretty useful. So
for the minutes, I think I missed the second test, but if I can write that DKG will just make a PR, that's also fine for me.
I don't think I understood what Andrew proposed, so maybe you can write it.
Okay, so Andrew can make a PR. Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
You've just volunteered.
Yeah. So the two tests were it was the same certificate bundle, but the tests were if the only verifiable certification is over the deprecated key, if we pass this to receiving implementation, A, will it encrypt to the preferred key rather than the deprecated key, and also will it verify a signature made by the preferred key, even though there is no direct certification over the preferred.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Well, those are the open issues. There was one thing that was just raised on the list just there yesterday, I think it was, which I didn't have time to put into the slides. And that was whether we wanted to relax one of the musts to a should. Basically, currently the draft states that a replacement key subpacket must be ignored if it is in the unhashed area. And the suggestion is that if this is relaxed to a should, then verifying key servers may be able to add replacement key subpackets to certificate bundles that they serve in order to denote their own opinion about what a user has uploaded. Particularly if the user wants to upload some kind of statement saying, I have lost the private key material to this, but I would like to mark it as deprecated, or I would like to suggest that people look up the replacement key, even if there is no cryptographically actionable information in that representation, because obviously it's not trustworthy, but as a location hint, it has been suggested that it might be useful under some circumstances. I don't want to put that into the draft itself, because that would be a big change to the draft. But if we wanted to reopen this in the future, or if we wanted to leave open the possibility of something like this in the future, we need to relax one of the musts to a should. But we can talk about that on the list. Daniel?
I don't know that we need to relax one of the must to a should in order to be able to change it in the future. In the future, we can write the document that says we relax this must to a should, and make the exception when we want to write down how that exception works. Because currently it's must ignore, right? We're not going to reject the whole thing if it happens to show up in the unhashed subpacket area.
It must ignore.
So, yeah. So must ignore seems fine. And if somebody wants to write down how to do this other thing, we can do that, and it can note that it's no longer a must ignore, right? It can explicitly supersede that guidance.
Okay. That would have to be in a separate document, though. We'd need to put it in a new document. Whereas if we change it to should now, we leave the option open for people to do this without documenting it necessarily. But we can bring that to the list. I'm just making people aware of it. So that's me done. The draft and the repo are in the usual place. There have been a couple of tiny changes to the draft since the one on the data tracker. One change is just to fix a howler, and the rest is just bits and pieces of wording nits essentially. But there's nothing substantial changed since the copy in the data tracker. So thanks very much.
So Andrew, I think the outcome there is that you had an action to create a PR, which is great. Did we have some choice between those existing PRs 50 and 52, or is your PR going to essentially pick one?
I will open an issue stating the general shape of the tests so that we should have a certificate bundle that has these kinds of certifications on it, and we should check to see that this behavior comes out of the receiving implementation. How that certificate bundle is generated by SOP will then be a choice between those two merge requests on SOP itself. So that will be a detail that will feed into mine. So we will still need to make a separate decision about which particular interface we want SOP to expose. But both of those interfaces should be able to create this object that I'm trying to describe. So.
Okay, so I mean, that kind of sounds like we're saying the working group is happy to leave that decision about SOP to the people actually writing the code and the tests. And it'd be confirmed on the. I mean, it's
I'm absolutely happy for the implementers to agree amongst themselves which one they want to implement. It's outside the scope of this draft, but obviously everybody in the working group may have an opinion, so we can take it to the list.
Okay, but I just wanted to check. I mean, I think the proposal is that you are going to work with the other people interested in implementing things in the SOP and figure out a selection between 50 and 52, and then eventually that will, people on the list can comment on that.
Yeah, I think that's it. Nobody else seems to have a strong opinion either way, so
yeah. So if anybody who thinks that's a bad plan, then now's a good time to say that. But it doesn't sound like a bad plan. So. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. Yes, so persistence metric keys. So we had quite a lot of discussion on the mailing list since last meeting about mainly whether to define new packets or define new algorithm IDs. And my reading of sort of the conclusion of the mailing list was that the majority was in favor of defining a new key packet. So storing persistent symmetric key material in a new packet so that it's clear that it's slightly different type of thing than asymmetric key packets, right? For example, you can't extract a public key from it. Whereas I think multiple people expressed that it's still fine to keep reusing the PKASK and signature packets, and therefore also keep new algorithm IDs. So I didn't mint a new draft yet doing so, but I did make changes on the version on GitLab to basically do so. So yeah, I'll basically present exactly what I did here, and then people can, think about whether that's reasonable, and then I'll mint a new draft. And apologies for not doing that in advance. So yeah, so as I said, I changed the draft to basically define a new persistence metric key packet, which is essentially a copy of the secret key packet. So it has exactly the same fields. However, you can only use it with version 6, meaning the fields defined of secret key packet version 6. And when storing encrypted key material, you can only use AAD encryption, same as before. And I thought that we should make it non-critical, so I gave it packet ID 40, which is in the non-critical packet ID space, because that way you can still continue using a key bundle with, for example, multiple keys to decrypt existing messages on existing devices, while also adding the key for new stuff, for example. And then we need to, I extended the transferable key, transferable secret key grammar to allow adding this packet to a bundle of transferable secret keys. For now, without any subcomponents, so you cannot add a user ID or a signature or subkeys because I imagine that it shouldn't be needed when, since you're not going to communicate this this key publicly, you don't necessarily need to attach metadata to it. Probably. I mean, this is up for discussion still, of course. Then the algorithm registry also changes because we no longer need to reserve any algorithm space because there's no need anymore to signal in advance that certain algorithms are going to be symmetric because we have a new key packet which signals that instead. And in the PKESK and signature packets, it probably doesn't matter for how you handle them. In the signature packet, it's a bit debatable since you need a persistent symmetric key packet to verify the signature, which you potentially need to decrypt if it's stored with encrypted key material. So there is slightly different. But especially in the PKSK, the semantics are exactly the same. So we can get rid of that. And then, here's a table of how then in the new format it's kind of intended to be used. So you could have a transferable secret key bundle with 2 persistent symmetric key packets, one for HMAC and one for AAD. And then 2 asymmetric transferable secret keys, one for PQC and one for legacy clients, for example. And then obviously when you extract a transferable public key bundle from this, you would just drop the persistent symmetric key packets and convert the secret key packets to public key packets as usual. So then some open questions is basically with this change, we're kind of making some things impossible. For example, you can no longer add a symmetric subkey to an existing asymmetric transferable secret key. Although that's kind of an inefficient thing to do anyway, because then you constantly have to verify an asymmetric subkey binding signature for using a symmetric key, which is a bit unfortunate, but could be useful in certain deployments potentially. And then similarly, at least in this current proposal, then you wouldn't be able to add user IDs or signatures anymore. So basically, the question for the working group is, well, are there scenarios where that's still needed? I think it's fine to drop that. But yeah, should just double check. And then finally, open question is, are we happy with copying the secret key format? On the one hand, it's kind of overkill. On the other hand, it's obviously already implemented everywhere. So this is probably kind of the simplest thing to implement for existing implementations. But if we wanted to look at the packet in isolation and simplify it as much as possible, we could just say, okay, I mean, the body of the packet is just 32 bytes of key material, and that's it. And then if you want to encrypt a transferable secret key bundle, you could even just like encrypt the whole file rather than encrypting each of the individual secret key values in the key packets, right? But then obviously we are kind of, yeah, it becomes a much larger overhaul and becomes more difficult to deploy and yeah, potentially more difficult to use. But yeah, there are different options there. So yeah, that's kind of the current state. That this, what I described, is on GitLab. So let me know what you think. If it seems reasonable, I will mint a new draft soon. Although before then, I still need to also implement it and make new test vectors. But yeah, hopefully that seems reasonable. Yes, Andrew.
Hi. So I've kind of two questions. So the first one is about the grammar, which is on your slide 5. Is there the potential for halfway house, so that maybe we could have structures, but only if they always contain symmetric packets? So for example, you could have a symmetric signature primary key plus a symmetric encryption subkey. So the idea being that we could still have that kind of structure, but we don't mix and match the symmetric and the asymmetric. So then at least we're not getting into the really complicated territory of having to deconstruct a full TSK to take out the the symmetric and the asymmetric bits, because it's either one, or the whole thing's either one or the other. Would that give us the flexibility that maybe we might want without adding too much the complexity, do you think?
I think that would definitely work. I mean, so I guess we would just need to define one extra packet, right, for a persistent symmetric subkey packet. I guess that's fine. I mean, if it seems useful, we can do that. I wasn't sure if it's necessary, but obviously it's not much effort to define and spec and implement. I guess it's just, yeah, do we think it's worth the packet ID slot, right? That's all.
Yeah, sure. And the other question was just about code points. Sorry, I'm gonna bring it up again. Is there any scenario where these code points could be confused? Do we need to reserve like non-clashing? Because I know we already have 2 registries where the elements in one are reserved in the other to avoid clashes. Do we need to do the same thing here between symmetric and asymmetric code points, or can we just start a new asymmetric code point registry and just start it at 1 and not have to worry?
Right. So the current version on GitLab still extends the existing public key algorithm registry with these values, and still also offers the suggestion of renaming them, although we could drop that. But anyway, I think we in the current version we do need to avoid clashes, because in the, well, yeah, I think so, because in the signature and PKESK packets there is an algorithm value, and it would be nice for it to uniquely identify what algorithm that means, right? Obviously there's also a fingerprint So you could say it still uniquely identifies a key. I mean, for me, it feels a little bit dirty to start a new algorithm registry and then have overlapping values, and then have the same packet use two different registries in one octet, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
I'm trying to remember all the time. Yeah. Anyway, we can take this back to the list, but yeah, it seems that creating a new packet, which is useful to signal the existence of a symmetric key, still hasn't fixed the code point allocation issue. Like we're still.
Yes. So to be perfectly honest, my original position in the mailing list discussions was that defining both new packets and new algorithm IDs, like in the same registry, is kind of I don't want to say worst of both worlds, but it's like, I mean, it feels a bit redundant, right? So like one other solution could be to also define new packets for persistent symmetric key encrypted session keys and symmetric signatures, right? And then obviously we can just define a new algorithm registry and it's all very clean. I mean, multiple people expressed on the mailing list that they didn't think that that was necessary. But it's, I mean, in my mind, that's still an option. Then we would need to define potentially up to 4 new packets rather than 1 or 2, but maybe that's fine.
And they'll all be pretty much the same wire format as existing packets, just with slightly altered semantics. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it feels like overkill to me, but anyway, we can take it to the list. I'll have another think about it and see if there's anything clever that we can come up with, but you know, there might not be.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
Just for completeness, the other option that was offered is to have like a special value in the algorithm registry, which is, let's say, value 0. And then that just means no asymmetric algorithm. Look at, you know, the key for details or whatever, right? But I think someone also, or maybe multiple people also expressed that they weren't a huge fan. But anyway, yeah, we can discuss more on the list. Any other thoughts, suggestions, comments?
So just a question, Daniel. Do we know who's implemented or implementing, or what's the state of play there?
Yes, so we have implemented it in both our implementations, although I haven't made these changes yet. I believe that Sequoia mentioned that they are planning to implement it as well. And then we will most likely sponsor an implementation in RPGP, or the implementation in RPGP. I think that's all I know of so far.
For what it's worth, I would like to implement this as well. But the shifting nature of it has given me some pause trying to tackle it with PGPy.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay, so just Aaron, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I agree that we shouldn't be using the algorithm 0, because I think that's a terrible hack. And I think that using 2 registries is also can lead to issues, to people not realizing that's actually the same space.
Yeah, I think we should only make 2 registries if we also completely separate the packets, right? Like if we define new packets, then we could. but yeah.
Okay, and so Daniel, then just one other question: the draft cutoff before Montreal is in October 20th. Do you think there'll be a new draft before then, or not till after Montreal?
That is a good question. I will do my best. I might have to. Worst case scenario, I can mint a draft without updated test vectors or without any test vectors. If I don't manage to update our implementations, although I would like to do so anyway.
Okay, thanks.
Falco, your mic is pretty hot. If there's a way that you can reduce the noise, that'd be great. It's still very, very loud. Just reduce the volume, maybe.
I think it's the wrong microphone, because usually he sounds much better.
Yeah, I might have a problem, but sorry. Now better?
That's better. You could go even lower, but now it's much better.
Okay now?
All good. Carry on. Thank you.
Okay. So let me check the slide control. Okay. Yeah, we're presenting the draft about the introduction of NIST and brainpool curve composites for OpenPGP that was recently adopted. And this is not just a brief recap of what has been already presented. So we're introducing composites with MLCAM plus ECDH, MLDSA plus ECDSA with NIST and brainpool curves. And all of these combinations that we have included were previously included in the original proposal for draft IETF OpenPGP PQC, which is now has left the working group. It's being the application process, but only contains the 25519 and 448 curves. And yeah, we didn't change anything else. We are using the same chem combiner. Of course, the curves have a bit different aspects in this draft. And everything else is just the same. Yeah, and now for the discussion. So the main point that we see for discussion are the code points that had been stated previously, and there was also some discussion already on the list, and I'll come to that. So what we see here is that we have for each of the two schemes, chem and signature, we have 3 proposed code points for the NIST curves, 2 proposed code points for the brainpool curves. And the philosophies behind each of the two are a bit different. For the brainpool curves, we are keeping the paradigm of not pairing the same security levels, but a higher security level for the structured letter. That is the same paradigm that was used in the PQC draft. For the NIST curves, we have the general security levels while avoiding the use of the 521-bit curve. And one suggestion that was brought up was to replace the 348 curve with a 521-bit curve to make it fully consistent. Then there was the proposal of dropping the lowest level for the structured lattice. Then there was the proposal to drop the 256 curves in general, so which leaves open how we would replace them, because it doesn't necessarily mean that we're just dropping the code point. In this case, I think. And yeah, this is so far for the code points. And now we want to proceed, because this is there's another topic about the context parameter. Maybe we first open the discussion about the code points, if there are any opinions on this. Yes, please.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I would argue for dropping the lowest security code points, like the first one low. At least, I mean, unless there's strong justification, but I think it would be strange to include them here while we don't have them in the main PQC draft, because if someone is looking for the fastest option and they might be tempted to use this one, while if we think that we need a faster option, then like we should, in my humble opinion, define one in combination with, for example, curve to 5519, right? So I would argue that we should either have both of those or neither.
Mm-hmm. Proposal from Simon Source on the mailing list just recently, which is basically saying the same thing, but which is also requesting to align them with the same security level. Okay, so this would, so I think there have been now a few voices saying we want to drop probably a large count given the contributions so far. Most other topics had one suggestion. Most other suggestions had one voice. Any other opinions? Aaron, sorry. Yes, please.
Yeah. So I also think that the proper thing to do is try to reduce the number of algorithms, and I also feel like the P256, like it should be up to who wants to use these algorithms to decide which one they prefer renouncing to.
Sorry, I didn't understand about the P256.
So sorry, the point is, I don't think it should be us deciding whether that's the one to go. I think the people who wants to use these algorithms, I think there are too many, and if they think that the P256 is more useful than the 521, that's a fair choice for me. My only problem is trying to reduce the number.
So, but what number would you like to see?
I don't think I will be a user of them, so I don't feel entitled to tell which ones. That's my point.
Yeah, I'm not asking which, but what number? How many?
How many? Okay. I think we should try to keep it in line the other with the other specifications. Almost 2 to 4 per exactly. Yes, thank you. Like Daniel said in the chat, 2 levels of NIST and 2 levels of brain pool at most.
Which means 8. instead of 10, right? If I understand it right. In total, for
Yeah, at most. Like the lower, the better. So
yeah. Okay. Okay, then I guess we move on to the next topic.
So, Falco, just
yes, please.
I guess we will have more people on the mailing list with opinions about this, because people always have opinions about this. So
yeah,
is the proposal that you're going to go back to the mailing list with a here's a reduced list proposal, and then discuss it there? Is that okay? That's where we're at. Good.
Yep. Thanks. Okay, the next discussion that we want to raise is about the context parameter. So we had it coming up for the PQC draft in the AD review. Before, this topic had not received that much attention. I'm not sure if there was any discussion on the list for the PQC draft. We had discussed it internally, also on GitHub, publicly. But at the time when we wrote the draft, we came to the conclusion that it's a potential interoperability problem with crypto libraries to use a non-empty context parameter. So the idea why one would use the context, a non-empty context parameter, is to provide some defense against cross-protocol attacks. Because if the other protocol can sign the can sign a message or sign data that translates to signed data for OpenPGP, which then results in a different interpretation of a message, that would be unfavorable. But of course, we're currently not recommending to share keys across protocols. And then this is something you can never rule out. Even if you use the context parameter, you cannot rule out that the other protocol will allow the user to set the context parameter to any value. So we're talking about something like which can be considered best practice. For the PQC draft, it was considered to be too late to make a change now, to make a breaking change. But here we are in a different situation. And so we would have this certain advantage of better domain separation against other protocols if we use the context parameter. The cons would be potential lack of support in cryptographic backends. Probably the situation has improved as far as we can see, but we haven't evaluated this. So this would be something that people find out when they try to implement it. But another point is the alignment with @DSA and RFC 9580, because it's also affected in the same way. So this is a general problem of OpenPGP. This is not at all restricted to PQC or hybrid signatures. And @DSA doesn't use it. The PQC signatures in the PQC draft don't use it. So should this draft now switch to use it, to be in this aspect differing to those, and if it changes to use the context parameter, should it also use it for @DSA? Because that would be the logical thing. To use it only for MLDSA would be a bit a strange conclusion in my view. Aaron, are you still in the queue?
Yeah. No,
please.
I'm again in the queue.
Again in the queue.
So doesn't the draft use ECDSA?
Sorry. No, you're right. We cannot edit here. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, it would be for the other draft. No, this was a confusion.
Okay.
So, but there was no clear indication on the list. Probably we will still wait for further comments on the list. Okay, that's it for this draft. Any other comments on the general comments on the draft?
Thank you, Falco. Do you know? Oh, I see Daniel in the queue here. Daniel, you want to speak up?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure if I should comment, but if absolutely nobody else has an opinion about the context stuff, I do think it's vaguely a good idea for new algorithms. I mean, where we can still make a change to say that, yeah, I mean, using a context parameter is probably a good idea. I guess it might be worth investigating whether, like, indeed, the crypto libraries that you want to use support it. I don't have a strong opinion, also partially because, yeah, kind of as Aaron alluded to, I mean, we probably won't use these algorithms, right? So, I mean, for me, it doesn't matter that much, but maybe to sort of set the indication for future algorithms, maybe it's not a bad idea to look into using it.
Okay, thank you.
So I was going to ask if you know who's implementing this. Do we have implementations lined up?
Yes, Andrew, please.
No, sorry. No, it's just you're gonna answer DKG's question first. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah, we are going to implement it. We're going to create, hopefully be able to create test vectors soon. I mean, we have an implementation, but it's might need some alignment. I'm not sure. 100%. Probably it's already up to date, except for the test vectors, well, except for the code points, which makes it impossible to create finalized test vectors. Yeah, Andrew, you want to say something?
Yeah. I was just going to jump in on Daniel Havens' point about the context separation. I think it's a good idea. What I'm wondering, will it be to address it at a general level rather than an algorithm-specific level? Given that there are, concerns with particular implementations maybe not supporting context separation in the same way as each other, and can we solve this at the OpenPGP level rather than at the algorithm level? I appreciate that might not be possible, but I think it's worth looking into.
How do you imagine it on the general level? I'm not sure I have an idea how this could work.
Well, is there a way that maybe we could define a new way of constructing signatures? Because currently we have either we construct signatures just by passing the document itself straight into the hashing algorithm, or we have the random salt in V6 signatures followed by the document itself. But in neither of those constructions is there a leading domain separator. So I'm just wondering, is there a way to extend that to include a domain separator at the beginning of the data stream being signed over? I think OpenSSH does something like that, but don't quote me on that. But it might be possible. But I'm not. I don't know whether that would have the same security properties as passing a context separator into the algorithm itself.
Yeah, I agree insofar that if you have a leading constant prefix, that makes some aliasing attacks harder, but not all, of course. But yeah, it would be a good thing to have, especially because the random salt comes first in the assigned data, And that gives an attacker quite a lot of flexibility, because he can just choose it to have an arbitrary value to start the format, the data format he wants to simulate. Stavros?
Yes, so I would like to understand how many implementations do we need, because I think that this draft would go through maybe as an informational RFC and not as a proposed standard. And I'm not very firm in answering how many implementations do we need. I understood from the base draft that we needed 2, because the area director asked for it. What would be the case here?
So Stephen is answering in the chat from the charter here, which suggests that we want 2 independent implementations, just to demonstrate that at least 2 different minds have read the document and agreed that it does the same thing. That's the main goal for interoperability there.
Okay, very cool. Thanks.
Daniel?
Yeah, I was just gonna respond to Andrew's point about context separation, but although I already also typed it in the chat. But anyway, I mean, we did discuss content separation for 480 but it was kind of decided to postpone it, right? And we did also implement some form of context separation using signature subpackets, although of course it, I mean, doesn't cover all cases. So anyway, I mean, like, I think it's something that if we do make a V7 signature, then we should discuss that, but like probably that's gonna be quite far out, right? So I think it still kind of makes sense to, like, if there is a context separation parameter in the algorithm that you can use very easily, I think it still makes sense to do it pending something more general in OpenPGP, right?
Thank you. DKG?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that I actually think these are 2 distinct things. So one thing is, can we put a context parameter that distinguishes OpenPGP from other uses of the same cryptographic primitives? And that's what we're talking about here. And then what we were discussing for 4880 bis was actually thinking about a more nuanced within OpenPGP context parameter. So, like, for example, if you were checking the validity of an email signature, would you include other things in that so that the signature is only valid for this particular kind of email? And that's a distinguishing context within OpenPGP. And I think that the use of the context strings here, the context parameters as proposed here, really is to just say, look, if you happen to reuse this key with OpenPGP and other stuff, you don't have to worry that there's going to be some attack on OpenPGP from the other stuff or an attack on other stuff from OpenPGP. That's the advantage of this context parameter. And I think that it builds on, if we were to say we want more sophisticated contextual nuance in some future OpenPGP mechanism, those things build on each other. It's not we need one or the other. Those things are defenses against 2 different kinds of attack, because there could very well be an attack on 2 uses of a single key in OpenPGP and to do 2 different things. And yes, I agree, Daniel, we don't expect key reuse, but that's what this context parameter does. This context parameter defends you if you did have key reuse. Anyway, I mean, the question that you have here about what kind of cryptographic support is there in cryptographic backends, a way to find that out is to say, we're going to use it, and then have people come back and report, have the implementers come back and report and say, we don't have an answer. We can't do it. And then we can unroll it. But it seems to me like we could just go ahead and say, hey, in these places where we can put in a context parameter, we are putting in the string, ASCII string OpenPGP. And that's what we're doing. And if you can't do it, let us know and we can undo it, right? Falco, you also mentioned about code points. Please assign, in the draft, I think you're already using the experimental use code points, which is good. And that should not prevent you, using those code points should not prevent you from producing a development draft. Because you could do a development draft and a development release, not release. You can have a development branch of your implementation and have it work with the experimental code points and make sure that it works. And you can have test vectors that use the experimental code points, and those will get swapped out for test vectors that use the correct code points when we manage to land on a non-experimental one. But please don't let the lack of fixed code point assignment block any work here.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And regarding the context, I read that there are a few voices saying we should consider using the code point, using the context parameter. We should rather use it than not use it. Yeah, that's the conclusion that I would draw here. But we'll continue on the list also, yeah, of course. Okay. Andrew, please.
Yeah, just a quick one on TKG's last point. The code, the permanent code points for the first draft PQC have gone to IANA. So anybody working on that should no longer be using any experimental code points. So feel free to use as many experimental code points as you like, and don't worry about clashing, because if anybody is implementing something else, they should be using the real code points by now. So I noticed the latest draft, which is draft 01, still has TBDs in the table. So feel free to put in.
Andrew, you were cut off.
He's just saying, please feel free to put in experimental code points in there.
Yeah, then I understand. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And by the way, even if the other draft had not gotten permanent code points assigned, it is okay to have two different drafts that use the same experimental code point, right? You just you obviously wouldn't want one development branch to try to implement both of those drafts, where there'd be a collision. But that this is the nature of experimental code point use. There will be some collisions during development with other projects, but that's okay. And then when we assign permanent code points, presumably all you have to do is modify the constants and rerun the test vector generation, and it should all sort of fall out from there. So Falco, do you have any more slides? I see there's one more slide left.
No, just we're finished. I was just waiting a few seconds if someone else wants to say something. From my side, this is it.
That's great. Thank you for the work on this. It's great to see how fast this is moving. Let's hope we can get some other implementations out there going too.
Great, thanks.
So I think we're in the any other business part of the agenda here. We have 11 minutes left in the scheduled session. I want to thank the note takers who have, we had 3 note takers, much appreciated. Yeah, if nobody else has anything else, Stephen, any final chair comments?
Yeah, so I think Daniel and I had a chat a few weeks back, and we were hoping in Montreal to maybe have people think about rechartering. So I guess we'll start a conversation on the list about that, and I just put the link into the charter. You can see what's there. So I think the working group is probably at a point where we can think about what things do we want to do next, what's finished, what things did we think we were going to do that are no longer the case, etc. So I guess just to encourage people to start looking at the charter and thinking about what should we do next.
And it may not require a recharter, right? There may be work that you wanted to get done that fits within some part of the charter. So please do think about what other pieces you think the working group might want to adopt.
Yeah, and so yeah, we want to have a discussion about that in Montreal. So that's a topic to think about between now and then, and bring to the list, of course, as you can.
All right. I think I'm going to give everyone back 9 minutes of your day. And thank you for the participation. And let's see you on the list.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, bye.
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 So I can have a look over the notes and then post them, unless you particularly want to do it.
No, please, I would be happy if you did it.
Okay, I'll do that in a few minutes. They look reasonable already. So, and we should probably send a mail to the list in next weekish, saying the discussion in Montreal should be about next work items. Do we need to recharter, etc.
Yep, that sounds good.
So I guess one of us will do it when we remember, or we'll forget.
If you want to, yeah, I will. Let's see. I will, at the very least, I will nudge you to do it on Monday, and if either that or I will do it on Monday. Maybe I'll send you a draft on Monday.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
Are you
Stephen.
going to Montreal or?
I'm not going anywhere physically right now.
Okay.
My life is well, more complicated than it was before. But I will be there. I'll be on it remotely. So
yeah, I'll be there in person. So
all right.
Okay. So yeah.
See you, Stephen.